Hi, my name is Morten, and in this video we will be looking at product listing. Product listing in Ucommerce can be with and without facets, which is the ability to narrow the list by specific properties. I will show you both ways, but the end result will be a product listing that contains facets. It's also the more complex one, as there's a few more details that we need to get a grasp of, but that's what we're here to explore in this video. Product listing is basically retrieving a list of products from the search index. In this case, we will do it based on the current category we are looking at right now. Previously, we created a category listing with the ability to click on a category with a link that took us to the category page. And we can use that to our advantage by then grabbing the current category we're looking at right now and then extract all the products that exists under that category. So that's what we will be doing in this exercise. And as we have tried before, we need to get hold of a few components from the IOC container of Ucommerce, and that's also what we will start out by doing in this exercise. So here we have to extract the current category coming from the iCatalog context. So let's try to create a public property up here in our category controller where we can grab that. And the interface we're interested in this case is Ucommerce API iCatalog context. Oh, not catalog library, but catalog context. And that comes from the IOC container. Just like this. So catalog context will now fetch us an implementation of iCatalog context coming from the IOC container. We can of course just use object_factory.instance.result here to do that, which will peek down into the IC container and give us the component that we need. So now I can use catalog context down here in my index method. And what I'm interested in is a facet result set, which will contain my actual products, but I sort of jumped it a little bit here because first of all we of course need the current category, and that comes from the ucommerce.search.models.category, which is the category that we need from the context, which will be current category. Like this. So here we now have a current category coming from the catalog context, and remember from the catalog context presentation that the current category will be resolved based on the URL that are in the browser. So that will contain the display name of the current category, and here we will get back the current category in the correct language. Because the index used is language specific, and the CMS will always tell us what is the language of the site right now, and then Ucommerce will internally figure out the correct index and thus give us the correct category back in the correct language version. So here we have current category, and now we need to grab the products based on the category. We can do that by grabbing iCatalog library. And the pattern here is the same, that we grab it from the IOC container. And the reason I'm using full namespaces here, I may have said that before as well, is not that you also need to do it. You can easily just have the using statements up here. but I want to show you the namespaces over and over again so you get familiar with it and at least have seen it a couple of times before. Okay, so we now have catalog library in the controller. So now we can use that to grab our facets and our products. And the way that we do it is by using catalog library, get products, and here I get a result set back, which is either a result set of products or a facet result set. So depending on what method I use here, I will get back the appropriate collection with products. In this case, I want to pass in a Facet Dictionary as well, which is the user selections that the user clicked on. For example, I want to see all products in color blue in shoe size 12. So in this case, I want to use the method called get products, and there's overloads that either gives me the facets or just a result set of products. The facet result set here will also contain products, and that's what I'm interested in, both what are the available facets based on what the user have selected, as well as what category we are in, and also the skip take part. So here I pass in my category ID, which is a GUID. So here you can notice that we are not passing in the specific object, just a GUID, a reference to a category. So so the GUID here may as well come from I don't know, a page where you have selected to show products from a specific category. So it doesn't have to come from the context. It just happens to be in this case. So the context is what are the category we're looking at right now. But in the end, it's just a GUID that we pass in. So I need a Facet Dictionary here as well. The way that it has been implemented in this way is that we have a little helper method up here that transforms a query string on a request into to a Facet Dictionary. So it means that when we click on the facets, it will automatically transform the URL to contain a query string that contains a serialized version of what the user has selected. It could also just come from a web API request where we have web API transform a model for us. So this is just a less elegant way, but a little more maybe easy to understand in some cases. I'm sure you have done this a bunch of times before, so no need to spend a lot of energy on that. So in this case, I need to grab the query string from the current request. And then I can call my helper method, which is basically just an extension method. And then my skip and take, I just want to highlight that it does do pagination. So in this case, I pass in what we need. Again, we don't want to implement a full pagination or endless scrolling functionality here in this masterclass. I'm sure you have done that a bunch of other times with other APIs. So as long as you know what APIs to call, the rest is business as usual. All right, so now we have our facet result back, and that's a specialized collection. And let's try to do the full namespace here again. So it's a facet result set of product that we get back. In this case, the model is product. The reason we have the generic parameter here is you can actually also do facets on categories and on stores and catalogs. You typically don't do that, but it is possible as the index in Ucommerce has been designed in a generic way. So you can store anything, and you can also do facets on anything. So now we have our products here, and of course both the product data and the facets are coming from the correct language, as again the CMS decides what language we're looking at right now. Ucommerce will resolve the right index and the right facets based on that. So now we have the facet results set back. Now we need to map that into our view models that we are returning here in the end. On my category model, I have a list of products, which is another view model that we want to have. And in this case, we have a helper method called map products that takes in a list of products. And the list of products in this case comes from my facet result set, where I have my facets, which gives me back a list of facets, and then it has the results, which is the products I'm looking at right now. So 0 to 300 or 300 to 600. And it will contain it's just a regular I list. So it will show you how many results there are. And then you can also use total count here to say, maybe there's 10,000 products in your index. And that's what the total count here gives us. So we pass in the result. So now it's being mapped here in my category, and it takes in the products here. So my map products method is down here below. And now I can basically just map whatever data that I'm interested in on my products. That could be prices, custom properties, so on and so forth. So let's take a look at that. The first thing I'm obviously interested in is a price for my product. So let's start out with that. I'm using catalog library for that, and that has a method called calculate prices, which takes in a list of product GUIDs, and it also takes in a list of price groups GUIDs, but as an optional parameter. So if we don't specify that, Ucommerce and the API will just automatically resolve what are the price group on my catalog, and then I will get prices back for that. So it's basically a matrix of products and price groups, and actually also tiers. So if you're using tiered pricing in Ucommerce, you can say I want my products to be 100 a piece if I buy 0 or more, up to 10, and then the price will be something differently. So that's what I get back on my product price calculation result. As you can see here, the return type is. I want to calculate prices. In this case, we don't want to take in the list of products itself. We want to pass in GUIDs, which makes it more flexible, but you have to do a little more boilerplate code for that. So on my products here, I want to select all the GUIDs. It's fairly simple stuff though. And once I've done that, I'll just leave my price group GUIDs to null here. And thus I get back my prices in the matrix, and then we have to grab that once we loop over our products and add them to our view model. So let's create that. And then we return that in the end. So now we just have to iterate our products and map them. Good, so let's do that. So I'm now iterating my products from up here, and we want to add to the list. And now I just need to set the properties that I'm interested in for my products here. Product to add. I'm of course interested in a few different things like the name, the SKU, the description, and URL, and the price. And basically in your product listing, you need to define what makes sense for your solution. Later on in this video, I will show you how to extract custom properties as well. We need to modify the product index definition to make that go. Otherwise, you'll just have the default stuff available, which is enough in most cases, I would say. So for example, we are interested in the long description. Maybe we're not interested in that. Maybe we just need a short description of the display name, but let's just map it anyways. And again, the long description and the display names and stuff like that are language specific. Again, Ucommerce automatically figures out the correct language index to use based on what the CMS tells us. So we don't have to care about that as a developer. We just have to implement the ability to swap languages if that's something that the user can do. And then Ucommerce will automatically follow. We are also interested in display name. In this case, on our view model, it's just called name. That's what we will see out in the front end. We will not see the internal name or the display name. We will always see only the display name because that's what makes sense to the customer visiting the site. Now we have the name. We also want to have the price, and in this case, we will set it based on the result we have up here on the prices. So here in what I'm iterating, I say I want the prices where the product GUID is the GUID of the product we are iterating right now, and also the prices price group GUID, because we may potentially get back multiple prices, for example, a list price and a sales price or whatever. In this case, in the Masterclass here, we will only have a single price, but it can make sense to display multiple prices. The discount will automatically be part of the actual item we get back. So you can get what are the price without discount and with discount, so you can do strike-throughs and stuff like that. But in this case, we just have a single list price that may or may not contain discount. So on the catalog context, I can grab the current price group. So what are the prices that the current visitor is seeing right now? So we take that in here as well. And do a to list on that. So now we also have the prices and we have the name. And again, we are of course also interested in the URL for this product. So let's grab that. To get that, I need the URL service as well, which is a component that I have not taken in yet. We also used it in one of the previous exercises. And that comes from search.slugs.iurl service. little bit of typing here to make it go. Now we have the URL service. And with the URL service, we can now call get URL. And we are interested in a URL in the catalog we're looking at right now, as well as the categories we're looking at. I will just make it simple in this case and create a new array with the current category. And then the product we're looking at. So that gives us a URL with the catalog, the category, and the product. If we can also grab the entire category chain from the context. It has current categories as well, which gives us the ability to extract the entire hierarchy all the way up to the root category. So if we are in a subcategory somewhere, we will get all the categories back from going all the way to the top. So here, catalog, category, and product, which is the URL, and that's enough for us to generate the URL for the product, and Ucommerce will automatically figure it out as we go. Let's grab the URL, the SKU of the product as well. Because that's actually interesting when we do product listing and we want to add the product to a cart, but only if the product is sellable. So a sellable product is if it's a product family and we're displaying a variant, or if it's just a product without variants. There's a separate video on that as well, so you can see what kind of configuration a product can have to be sellable or not sellable. And to do that, we can access the product type. So a product type can either be a product or it can be a variant. To be sellable, of course. So if it's a product, it's a sellable product. If it's a variant, then it's also a sellable product. But if it's a product family, then the product itself is not sellable because it indicates that this product contains variants, and then you have to add a specific variant to your cart, and I will show you more in details how to do that. Good, so a product is sellable if it's a product or a product family. And that's actually it. Let's take a look at the result on our website.